How's it, everyone? Back on SoccerBeat. I have a very interesting guest with me today, Cash and Sport, the man on all social media platforms. That's where you'll find him. He's the man who can give us all the details on what's happening with Royal AM. He knows all the financial deals behind a lot of South African football. He knows the numbers, and he's kept a close eye. If you follow his Twitter, you'll see that he's kept a close eye on the Royal AM deals and his offers and the club for sale, etc., etc. Thank you so much for joining me, man. I'm very much so looking forward to unpacking this and what the latest is with the Royal AM saga.
Mike, how's it going? Good to see you. Good to meet you, and because we've never actually met, crazy enough, but we've interacted on social media platforms. But yeah, good to chat to you. Your platform is growing amazingly, by the way. So congratulations on that. But yeah, looking forward to chatting
so
about Royal AM and see what's happening with that.
Yeah. So where do we stand right now? I mean, the last time that I saw you communicating was that there was a deal that was on was tabled and subsequently turned down. Where are we with that situation right now?
Yeah. So on, I don't remember what today is because there's so many things happening. Today's Monday. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I went on to the Robert Marawa show and I kind of intimated that the following week would be a pivotal one for the league and for Royal AM in terms of the deal. The reason why I said that is that it could have been the last week of the international break. And if you look at my Twitter, the last thing I posted about Royal AM is the fact that if they don't start playing matches basically in this week, there's no feasible time that they could actually play any games. It would be mathematically and physically impossible for them to continue playing. But on the deal itself, I got some information last week, very early around the fact that there was a chosen bidder by the SARS curator. Royal AM, as we know, is under curatorship at the moment, which basically means it's basically Britney Spears of football commentary. They can't do anything. You know how Britney Spears was under curatorship. Someone could decide where she spends her money, how she spends her money, where she lives, what she does, etc. It's exactly the same with Royal AM. They are under a custody battle with SARS, and SARS controls everything with regards to the club. The reason, so I got some information last week saying that, and this was on Wednesday, I think. I got information saying that there had been a preferred bidder, and I was given a name. I verified that name, which ended up being Roy Moodley, and the fact that he was going through his son, Mageshpran Moodley, to make a bid, and he had been chosen as the preferred bidder by SARS and the curator, and that he had tabled a bid somewhere in the region of 23 million rand, and that the PSL was set to meet on Thursday to discuss the deal. And that Thursday also, by the way, was when they were supposed to have paid the price towards into the curator's account to show that they are now taking over the club, and for the PSL essentially to rubber stamp the deal. What then happened is that on Thursday, this whole flurry then happens. The media then starts putting out the fact that Roy Moodley is going to be the preferred bidder. I also put it out, by the way. And then it was confirmed by the SARS curator that the family had not made the payment in the 3 days that was required. And therefore, the curator had informed the PSL of this, and essentially the deal had collapsed. The way that the deal worked is that you have to pay your 1 million rand deposit to play the game, and then you have to pay the fee that you had agreed on in order to finalize the deal. And then you take the club on thereafter, and you sort out all of the other issues such as the Nurkovic monies and so on and so on. But they didn't meet that first hurdle, and therefore the deal collapsed.
Wow, so they were willing to pay 23 million, not including the Nurkovic outstanding debt.
So this hasn't been confirmed, but it has been flying around quite a bit. Is that they were willing to pay for the club itself, the value of the club, but they weren't willing to pay for all of the other things associated with it, which is the problems, the Nurkovic and the outstanding set, because there are still other players who are still owed monies beyond Samir Nurkovic. I can't confirm or deny that, but what I do know is that they didn't pay the 23 million. that they had decided on, and they didn't even get to a point of sorting out all of these other issues. They have now come into the media, which is the Moodley family. They have now come out into the media saying that it's not true that they didn't pay the money, that there was some sort of miscommunication with regards to timelines and so on, and that money was never an issue. Looking at Roy Moodley and the businesses that he has, it should not be an issue. 23 million is not a lot of money for him, I would think, but it didn't happen, and the SARS curator, confirmed as such, and essentially at the moment the club is back on the market, and anyone can buy it again.
Yeah, but is that the type of money they're looking for? Because essentially, I mean, are you'd be buying a team that is very likely the team's going to get relegated. I mean, it's not a good chance that you're going to survive here, especially with the schedule. I mean, and I don't know what the situation is with the players. I don't know if you have more insight on that. Have they been training? Are they ready? I mean, as you say, they would have to start playing basically this week. And where are the players? Do they have a full squad of players? Who's the coach? Will they be ready to play this week? There's
No,
a lot of
no.
questions there.
I mean, there were some rumors at the end of last week that players were training, but I also know that they lost 3 players at the end of last week. I think it got announced this weekend that 3 players had moved from Royal AM, I think, to Amazulu or Golden Arrows, one of the two. But that's a little bit up in the air. I don't know what the state of the. I do know that it's been quite some time since these players played. I think the last match was on the 29th of was it 29th of December, and they haven't played. They've missed, now it's 13 matches. So the state of the club, the players. I've spoken to some people who are close to some of the players, and I think some of the players, obviously, the players have been trying to keep as fit as they can, but with the curator and the current situation, where essentially they can't spend any money on anything really. There's a few players whose salaries were paid late and were outstanding, etc. I wouldn't imagine that those players are all ready to play, and 100% fit. But given the timelines and the fact that I stated, I put a hard date to be the 5th of April. If there's no games by the 5th of April, Royal AM can't physically complete a season. It's physiologically not possible. It could even be sooner than that, because there's other cup fixtures such as the CAF Champions League and so on, which are also involved, which wasn't all accounted for in the kind of timeline that I put up, because even
Yeah.
those games, because they're not, we don't have an exact date for when exactly those games will play, but I know that they will have to play at some point. Some of those teams that are put into the schedule likely would have to change those days, or would have those days unavailable anyway. So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
we had
it's a very
a back and forth on Twitter as well, because I looked at those dates and I was thinking, wow, like that's really condensed. I mean, there's some where you've even tried to look at weeks where they'd play only
yeah.
2 days apart, and I assume that you're not even allowed to by FIFA law play like less than 72 hours apart. But you're saying it is possible, but like,
Yeah, so
is
so
it really?
FIFA
Yeah,
FIFA has provisions for player welfare and mandatory rest periods. They have suggestions of 72 hours where possible, but that where possible is there for a reason.
okay,
They suggest 72 hours, and generally players don't play within that 72-hour window, and I think the PSL does actually enforce it within the league. But in instances where they have to, and there have been instances where teams do play in 48 hours, when they have to, but generally speaking they try not to, and the PSL tries not to force it, but they can lean on it if it were in a situation like this, where essentially they have to complete a 16-team season. And let's not forget that there's a lot leaning on 16 teams actually completing their season. There are commercial agreements in the back end which define how much money you make and so on and so on. And that fixture schedule, that schedule, is what you sell to all of these people. So if you can't deliver it, there's financial repercussions as well that come
yeah.
with that.
Let's talk about that. I mean, what are the repercussions if the purchase doesn't go through in the next week or two, and we don't have a 16 team season? And what
So
are they going to do? Are they going to deduct points? Are they going to what are the outcomes here?
well, before we talk about the commercials, I think let's address what could potentially happen to Royal AM, and then we'll talk about the commercials. So, in terms of the club, what does the curator do now? Because essentially you found a preferred bidder, but that fell through. So you've got a couple of options as a curator. You could go back to the bidders because you already went through the process, right? All you need to do really is just go back to them and say, guys, it's open floor again. Are you still interested? Yes or no? The bidders will say, yes, we are still interested. This is how much we're still willing to pay the same amount of money. Then great. Then you go back to the PSL and say, okay, now this is the new preferred bidder. Are you willing to accept this? If you're willing to accept it, pay the money and get your transaction approved. That's what I thought would happen since Thursday. I thought that it would be very likely that we would get another bid placed, and I wouldn't be too surprised still in the next day or two if someone comes out as the preferred bidder again. Because remember, you have to take this situation to the PSL and inform them of the bid. So this is what happens. The curator gets informed by the bidder to say this is how much we're willing to pay. The curator then informs the PSL. The curator then informs the bidder, to say, you've got 3 days, 3 business days in which to pay this money. Then it has to go to the PSL for the PSL to adjudicate and approve the deal. Because remember, what you're buying as a bidder is membership into the PSL or the NSL. You can't get into the PSL or the NSL without approval from the PSL. So they have to approve it. They're the last stop. Once they approve it, the club is yours. They transfer all of the marks, the logos, the players, the assets, and everything. Now you can continue to run the club once you've got approval from the PSL.
Yeah, just a question on that.
Yeah.
I know that Royal AM have got quite a fancy facility up in Pietermaritzburg. Is that part of the deal?
How would you like to win a little something extra just for joining the best in the game? For a limited time, we are teaming up with Betway and giving all of you access to a SoccerBeat exclusive. If you join Betway using the sign-up code SoccerBeat, now in March, you'll get 25 Rand extra bet. That's right. It's time to get way more out of every bet. Standard T's and C's apply.
If it was registered as an asset of the club, yes. But I don't know who owns that facility. But given the fact that SARS has gone after Royal AM and everything attached, I would think that likely if the Mkhize family was smart, possibly they could have registered it as a separate from the club. But to bolster because generally what you would do with a facility like that is that you would use it as financial leverage to go out into the market and get money for the club. So
yeah,
for me,
the only reason I asked that is because the valuation of 22 million sounds very high for me for the current situation, and for me, it's almost the likelihood that you're buying a national first division team. And you would think you'd be paying those prices. And
yes,
for 22 million for the amount of risk you're taking on just sounds like a lot of money.
True. And this is why I think the rumor about an 18-team PSL doesn't want to go away. Because how do you resolve for someone putting in 22 million, 23 million, almost guaranteed that the team's not going to be able to complete games? And I think they've got about 8 or 9 points at the moment. So they're not going to get to they could get to maybe 20 points if they play maybe another, but what are the chances? It's very, very difficult. It's almost guaranteed that the team's going to get relegated. And the moment that they get relegated, the team almost halves in value. You have no broadcast income. Your monthly grant goes from 2.5 million rand to 500 and something thousand rand. So, and you lose most of your squad because most of those players will have get out clauses that say that they can play in the PS that they can get out.
And you won't want them in the NFD anyway because they'll be too expenxive to sustain an NFD on your
and the wages are too high. I mean, you were at Cape Town Spurs towards the end there, so you know what the situation is there. So that's why, in my opinion, and I've spoken about this a couple of times, and that's why, in my opinion, the question about how do you almost guarantee whoever's spending money on this team that the team's not going to go down? You can't do it without an 18-team league. Because how do you then justify them staying up, But anyway, the other option, just to close off the loop from earlier, is the club could get liquidated. Liquidation means literally selling off everything piece by piece, even players, because players are assets. selling the players, the chairs, the books, the cars, the everything, and potentially that facility, if it's linked to the if it's registered as a club facility, sell that off as well. But SARS will want to sell everything, including the facility, the family's personal cars and houses and whatever it is. They'll sell everything to get their money back. So there's that. And then the third and most interesting option, I think, is if you remember what happened to Ria Stars back in the 2000s.
You'll have to
That
remind
club,
me. That before my
that
time.
club, yeah, Ria Stars was a team performing in the PSL, but the league decided to shrink down to 16 teams. If you remember, there were 18. The league decided to shrink down to 16 teams and bought back the status of Ria Stars, right, from the owner. So that team was bought back by the league, and essentially the status dissolved so that you could get down to 16 teams from 18. So that's another option. They could shrink the league. They could buy the status, but then again, if you buy the status, the Samir Nurkovic debt issue doesn't go away. I don't think the PSL is in the business of buying someone else's debt or settling someone else's debt. You know, it's not a thing that they'd want to do. So how do they get around that issue? That's why I think that one is less likely, but I mean, it's not in the realm of it is possible. It is possible.
Yeah. And now, with the urgency of this matter and SARS being in charge of this wholesale, I mean, are we going to run into the issue of due diligence again on club owners? I mean, we've been burnt now multiple times in the PSL. I mean, how are we assured that the next person coming in and buying a club is an owner that has the best, I mean, that is going to do justice to the league and bring in good governance?
I stated a couple of weeks ago that I think this is the best thing. This is one of the best things that could happen for a maturing PSL, because let's not forget the PSL, the NSL is the modern form of the PSL, was formed in '96. It's not the oldest of federations in terms of its the modern era. So what people forget is that the PSL or the NSL was formed in '96. It's a maturing league. It's in its 30s as a league. And I think that this Royal AM issue is one of the best things that could have happened to the league. It's not the best thing, that nobody wishes something like this happens. But what it does is that it forces you to grow up a little bit. And I'm not saying that the PSL is an immature league. It's one of the best run leagues on the continent. They have all of these measures in place with regards to owners showcasing that they have money to actually pay for the things that they say that they're going to do, that they're going to run the club properly, and so on and so on. But there's been a number of things that have happened with regards to owners and club licensing and status sales in general that haven't been great for the image of the PSL. And I think they could be a lot firmer, a lot quicker, and be a lot more in control of the image of the PSL, because what these owners do affects the PSL. The fact that 4 teams, I think, in the last year had FIFA transfer bans, for example, is not good for the image of the PSL. The fact that the PSL has a CEO who's been a temporary CEO for 10 years, it's going to be 10 years this year, is not good for the image of the PSL. The fact that, owners like Mamkhize, for example, who, by the way, was convicted of fraud through a company back in 2012 already, is not good for the PSL. All of these things. You've got the guy who used to own TTM, Masala Mulaudzi, who was in the competition commission for, well, I'm not going to say he defrauded anyone, but there was a big case around the Competition Commission and the Public Investment Corporation, and money that went missing is not good for the PSL. Even now, he's still going through cases and cases and cases. All of those things and all of the attached people and all of the attached scandals are not good for the image of the PSL. I know the PSL is very particular about its image, and it's very stern on people who speak badly about the PSL or who try to put it into disrepute. Anyone of the public, ask any journalist who's ever said anything. The PSL is very stern on its image, but there's a perception in the public or amongst corporate South Africa that perhaps they treat the owners with kid gloves, and I'm not saying that they do, but that's the perception. And you could ask any corporate individual out there what they think of it, and I think the PSL would be a little bit shocked about what their brand reputation is in the public. So I do think that the PSL can and should act much more firmly after this and as a result of this.
Yeah. So just in closing, I think we could chat about this all day. You have mentioned that you think that we'll see another offer tabled within the next couple of days. Are the other suitors, or is it now Woodley as the front runner to buy Royal AM? And do you think this purchase will eventually go through?
I think the purchase will eventually go through, but I don't know. I do think the other bidders who were in the running are still in the running now. I think the Mooley family has said that they have the money, so the money isn't a problem. But I do think there are other suitors now who will be encouraged by this. To also close, I think you mentioned the value of the club. In my opinion, I think the value of the club being at 23 million, I think they must know something, because it's higher than I thought. And given the situation of the team at the moment, it's quite high. If and also given the Summer Nurkovic 15 million rand debt, the other players, and then all of the work that you have to do in the first month or two to catch up. I mean, you're talking about 50 or 60 bar just in the first sort of month and a bit in outlay. It's a lot of money. Whereas,
Wow.
if you're talking about spreading that money out over a season, it's a lot more palatable. But kind of spending it all almost at once is a lot of money to drop. So
Yeah, and that's not risk adjusted. I mean, there's that massive risk factor that you just go straight down to the NFT. That's why in my head I was thinking you'd be playing NFT prices. I didn't like when I heard the 22 million. I was taken aback.
But this is why, remember, I keep on bringing this 18 team thing. If you can almost guarantee someone that your money is not going to get lost, because essentially now you're talking to an investor
Yeah.
here. This person is investing money into the team and into the league, right? Because all of these individual owners invest into their own individual teams to prop up the league. That's what you sell, right?
Yes.
How do you guarantee that person that I'm going to throw in? Because it's essentially what you're saying to them is you're giving them a bucket with a whole bunch of holes in it and saying throw your money into it. There's no guarantee that it's going to remain sustainable, and that you're even going to have any sort of chance of keeping any value in this thing. So in my opinion,
Yeah.
that's why this question about an 18 team league does not want to go away, because how do you guarantee value?
Yeah.
If you
No.
say
Okay.
what
Yeah.
relegation,
Okay.
one,
You've heard
and
it here first, guys. So the 18 team rumor started here with Cash and Sport.
I did not
Guys,
stop.
please make sure.
I did not
It's
stop
been
the rumor.
floating around the
But
PSL
it's
for the
been
longest
floating
time,
around,
and
I've
now
been a lot of people.
we have reason to believe that it could happen. So, guys, you have to stay tuned to Cash and Sport on all his social media platforms. I'm sure he'll keep us in the loop. And if there are any further advancements, I hope I can get you back on again so we can discuss it all again. But yeah, thank you so much. I found it extremely fascinating. I'm sure the guys at home did as well. And I feel like at least I know what's going on now, and I really appreciate it. And we'll chat soon, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Domo arigato. Domo arigato.
SoccerBeat, what?